again to another of my short messages to encourage you in this coming week. Many of you will be aware that last week I conducted the funeral of one of our older church members, that of Betty Pitches. She's 98 years old, a lovely lady with a warm and friendly personality and a very gentle Scottish accent, which was attractive in itself. Sadly, because of all the restrictions that are going on at the moment, the funeral was very limited. Only a few members of the family were able to be there. And because of the social distancing in itself, there is no touching, there's no handshakes, and certainly no hugs. And being a huggy, sort of tactile person myself generally, that does come across a bit hard. On the radio last week as well, I heard it said that one thing that most people are looking forward to after this social isolating is all over is the ability to hug another. Certainly within family context and with grandchildren, but wider still. So here comes a warning for all of you anti-huggers: beware. Of course, we do respect each other, and we respect social distancing in the sense of being sensitive and personal space, and whether or not it's appropriate. But having said that, we do recognise that in some cultures, of course, hugging and kissing on the cheek is very much part of a normal greeting. A little while ago, we looked at this in church, the concept of touch within a Christian context. And we recognise that research shows that hugging as well as laughter is extremely effective at healing sickness, disease, loneliness, depression, anxiety and stress can all be affected positively by a good warm hug. It's also known that babies in particular suffer physically as well as emotionally if they're not hugged and cuddled. And scientifically, it's proven that hugs can instantly boost oxytocin levels, which add to the healing of feelings of loneliness and isolation and anger, as well as strengthening our immune systems. Well, I came across a little article that I've had for some time, and it's all about hugging. So I'm going to share that with you now. So what's so good about hugs? There are good ones and great ones. They're not fattening and they don't cause cancer or cavities. They're all natural with no preservatives, artificial ingredients or pesticide residue. They're cholesterol-free, naturally sweet, 100% wholesome and a completely renewable natural resource. They don't require batteries, tune-ups or x-rays. They're non-taxable, fully returnable and energy efficient. They're safe in all kinds of weather. In fact, they're especially good for cold or rainy days and exceptionally effective in treating problems like the bad dreams of the Monday blas. Moral is, never wait until tomorrow to hug someone you could hug today. It's worth remembering that, of course, Jesus was a very tactile person. He reached out and embraced people when a simple nod of the head or a handshake would have done. He touched a leper. He laid hands on the sick. When the disciples tried to keep children from him, he welcomed them to his lap. Jesus not only touched suffering people who needed healing, he also touched struggling people, those who were desperate, isolated, feeling guilty, spiritually desperate and lost. His is a touch of love that brings healing and restoration, a sense of acceptance and worth. Psalm 145 from verse 13 says, "The Lord is faithful to all his promises and loving towards all he has made. The Lord upholds those who fall and lifts up those who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you and you give them their food at the proper time. You open your hand and satisfy the desires of every living thing." The touch of God is also a transforming touch. We know how the Apostle Paul was changed after meeting with the resurrected Jesus on that road to Damascus, from persecutor to pioneer. John Newton speaks of the change to his heart during a storm on the seas, a former slave trader to theologian and preacher and writer of the famous hymn Amazing Grace. Many more have and can and will testify to God's touch on their lives that has not only challenged them, but also changed them. Illustrated here in a poem that Ruth reads for us, "'Twas battered and scarred."
The touch of the Master's hand. 'Twas battered and scarred, and the auctioneer thought it hardly worth his while to spend his time on the old violin, but he held it up with a smile. "What am I bid, good people?" he cried. "Who starts the bidding for me? $1, do I hear two? $2, who makes it three? $3 once, $3 twice, going for three, but no!" From the room far back a grey-bearded man came forward and picked up the bow. Then, wiping the dust from the old violin and tightening up the strings, he played a melody pure and sweet as the angel sings. The music ceased, and the auctioneer, with a voice that was quiet and low, said, "What now am I bid for this old violin?" as he held it aloft with its bow. 1,000, 1,000, do I hear? Two, 2,000, who makes it three? 3,000 once, 3,000 twice, going and gone, said he. The audience cheered, and some of them cried, "We just don't understand what changed its worth." Swift came the reply, "The touch of the master's hand." And many a man with a life out of tune, all battered and bruised with hardship, is auctioned cheap to a thoughtless crowd, much like that old violin. A mess of pottage, a glass of wine, a game, and he travels on. He's going once, he's going twice, he's going and almost gone. But the master comes, and the foolish crowd never can quite understand the worth of a soul and the change that is wrought by the touch of the master's hand.
Fortunately, there are no restrictions as far as God's touch is concerned. He can come alongside us into the darkest and deepest of places, whether in a cave of despondency like David, or a fiery furnace like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and even when surrounded by prowling lions as Daniel was. Jesus comes to us as the Good Shepherd, looking for the lost sheep. And when he finds that lost sheep, he picks him up and carries him in his arms to safety. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey at the moment, our God understands and will meet us where we are. He hears our cries, he knows our needs, and like the loving father who runs to greet the returning prodigal son, he runs out to meet us and throws his arms around us, welcoming us home into his presence. Well, we may not be able to hug or touch each other or even meet face to face at the moment, but the touch of the Master's hand can and will make all the difference. May you know his touch of blessing in this coming week.
Lord, I come to you, let my heart be changed. Flowing from the grave that found in you. Lord, I've come to know, and Lord, I've come to know the weaknesses I see in me will be stripped away. To